We are live and we are celebrating the book launch of Brilliant Breakthroughs for the Small Business Owner. Mark Bader, you are in chapter 5, I believe it is.
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2. Oh.
Chapter 2, I am in the profitability section, which is a surprise because people would think what I do would be in the people section. But actually, I think that it's people that are your result of profitability comes from the kind of people that you find.
So you said that it's the kind of people like you that should be one or the other. So what do you do so the audience knows what's going on?
Well, what I do a couple of things. I've been, for the past 25 years, I've been operating in human capital space. I am an executive recruiter. More specifically, I am a recruiter who specializes in focusing on finding what I call indispensable key talent. And those are those kind of people that they're different. They think differently. They operate on a different plane. No matter what the job or position that they are in, they are many times 2 to 3 or 4 or 5 times more productive than the other workers. And those people sometimes could be in marketing, they could be in product development, they could be in sales, but they're a person that many times operates kind of at the junction of those functional areas and actually can see the strategy. But when I say see the strategy, what they really are masters at doing is seeing the strategy and then being able to translate that into tactics and then ultimately implementation and execution. And those kind of people are worth their weight in gold.
They truly are. My youngest daughter is that way. She serves for Arizona Oncology she runs 5-6 different offices for the Arizona Oncology. Mm-hmm. And she is so amazingly valuable. And yet there's people that are noticing her value now and saying, right. Because,
exactly.
She even created an app during COVID that all of the offices are now using to track what's going on with their patients. And right. It's pretty cool. And I noticed her starting to look at these other opportunities that are coming her way.
And that's what happens. This is the thing about indispensable key talent, those kind of people. They don't have to look for jobs because the jobs come looking for them. Mm-hmm. And if you're smart as a company, most companies, even the smallest company, needs at least 1 or 2 of those kind of people. But it's not the approach that most people have used for recruiting for the last 40 years has been what I call a just-in-time approach, where Becky Norwood is the vice president of a company, and Becky says, well, we need a person to do this now. And then the recruiters and HR, or however they search, and they start looking for people who are available, and they say they want to get the best of breed. But in actuality, they're only looking at some of the best people that might be available at that given time, as opposed to those people truly being the best people that you want, because the best people, they're always going to be working. And so what one needs to do is either they do it themselves or they have someone like me do it, is creating those relationships sometimes years in advance of hiring, but actually building a relationship with the people, getting to know them, really getting to know how those people as a candidate or as a worker, how they operate. And then when the timing is right, bringing them in, irrespective really in some ways of the position. Because most of these people, in fact, really good people at what they're doing, position or title doesn't matter so much. It's what can they accomplish. And I always talk in terms of the only thing that a company, particularly small or mid-sized company, should be thinking about is when they hire somebody, what are the problems that they can help solve the company has that will increase either the profit or allow the company to grow, and in the best case scenario, to grow exponentially. And sometimes people say, well, what do you mean by exponentially? And the best example that I can use, and it's not growing a company, but this idea of exponential growth, this is what's happened with the pandemic. one day there's 50, and the next day there's 500, and the next day there's 2,500, and the next day there's 10,000. Well, companies can have exponential growth like that as well, but they have to plan for it, and they have to have the right people for it.
Right.
They because otherwise the a person's, I talk about the difference between irreplaceable workers and the indispensable key talent. And irreplaceable, when I say that, it's in parentheses or air quotes, because most of those people at some point, if the company is really growing, the company is going to outstrip that person's capability, right? And that's okay. That happens. That doesn't make the person bad, but at some point you may need to go and find somebody else, because the HR person who was running things when the company had 10 people might not be the person to be running things when the company has 200 people. Because they just don't have that ability to scale themselves.
So what are the qualities of somebody that is indispensable versus irreplaceable, or not being able to be replaced?
Irreplaceable. You got it right. Well, first of all, like I said, it's a mindset, and most of the time these people truly have a growth mindset, but they can see. And when I use this word "see," I don't mean it in that weird sense where somebody says, "Well, he's a vision person." No, but they can actually see the strategy that a company has and the way to solve the problems tied to that strategy. They can see it as a real thing. It's not an abstraction. And so that's one of the things is that's the kind of vision that most of these people are problem solver kind of people all the time.
Right.
And so that's the kind of thing that you need to do is if you're talking to people or developing relationships, what you're doing is you're going out to your own network and saying, I'm looking for this kind of person, a person who's a problem solver. I don't care what position, I don't care what functional, I don't care if it's technology or product development or marketing or sales or whatever. I only care that whatever they do, they see it as a problem and they are in that kind of mode to problem solve, and they will solve the problem, whatever it is.
And in today's world, it was maybe 10, 15 years ago when I heard talk about people that the children of that time would need to count on at least 10, 15, 20 career changes in their lifetime versus our older generations maybe staying in the same career all of their lives.
Right.
But in today's world, the type of people that become indispensable are not the people that want to stay with the same thing day after day. They get bored with it. They've accomplished it. They want to move on.
Well, exactly. What they do is they master their environment. And that environment could be the company, it could be the technology environment, it could be a market, whatever it is. And at some point, I always talk about key talent. This is one of the things that companies don't like. They're used to that idea of hiring somebody and they have them for the next 10 or 15 or 20 years. That doesn't happen. The average is going to be 3 to 4 years. You hire these people at the peak of their capabilities, because at some point, those people are probably going to go out and start their own businesses, because the structure doesn't work with them, and they have that need to be able to master that environment, and at some point they're going to take their skills to the marketplace. They'll be a sole proprietor, start their own small business. And so what I do is I start developing relationships with those kind of people relatively early on. And when I talk to companies about this, we're trying to find that person who's 3 to 4 years away from either moving into a company that's larger where more challenges are, or moving out on their own, right? And that's the time to get them, because they're at the peak of their powers. And it's kind of like picking fruit, the best fruit, you pick it at that peak time. Well, and that's the same thing with this. But the only way that you can do that is by using a proactive approach, where you are talking to these people and starting to develop relationships and hopefully an actual connection with these people, it might be a year, 2 years, 3 years. I placed people where I was in relationships with them for 5 or 6 years in advance and was always trying to find the timing and the right opportunity. And then when an opportunity came up and it was the right one and I placed them, and then the company said, wow, that seemed to be really easy. Well, it looked easy, but there were 5 years of relationship building with that person, knowing exactly the kind of opportunity they were looking for and trying to match that up. And that's one of the things that companies can do that themselves. Sometimes larger companies have a talent management group that's not necessarily directly part of HR, but most smaller or mid-sized companies, they could designate somebody like that to do that full time, but most companies are going to backslide and they're going to want that person to do other things because
Right.
developing relationships makes it looks like you're not doing anything. But as we all know, if you're a business person, particularly if you're a small business person, it's all about relationships.
It's totally about it. Yes.
It's networking. And what I have found during this pandemic, I've actually found out some things, and my businesses have pivoted a little bit. But it's first about networking. But networking is only a means to an end. The end is actually a connection, a real live connection with somebody, not just a connection on LinkedIn, but a connection where you actually talk to people, whether it's via in a virtual type of situation or in person. But it really is finding out who that person is and how you can help them, because the better you do that, the more likely it is they're going to come around and feel obligated and help you when the time comes. And then that next thing that you go to is community. So it goes from networking to connection to community. That's what I found out. I didn't even try to do it, but that's what happened during the pandemic. I've been doing group coaching. And, sometimes 20, 25 people on the call. I had to start doing them at night because some of those people who I was coaching in job search were finding jobs. So now I have some of these meetings at night so that the people, that was at their request, because they said they really enjoy the community that has developed among all these professionals. And the hardest thing for people to do, you know it as well as I do, most people, once they get out of their 20s, they really never develop any true friendships. It's hard to do that easy to do it when you're in high school, in college, but it's much harder. Well, and that's what a lot of these people have been saying, is how they've developed friendships, real friendships with people that happen from meeting that twice a week during the pandemic when people are penned up and everything. And the point is, that's the kind of thing that you need to do when I talk about being proactive in relationship building. It's actually connecting with people because you want to do it, not because you're trying to be transactional, wanting to fill a position. Because, Becky Norwood, if she's the right kind of person that we want to be developing that relationship with, maybe the situation, the timing doesn't work out 18 months from now. But you know what? Becky, because of Becky's background, skill sets, and expertise, the kind of people she's connected with are also probably the right type of people.
Right.
And so
absolutely.
That's how, I didn't know what I was doing, but over the years, I've been on LinkedIn for almost 18 years. And, now over the last 12 years, I've really been curating my network. And it's all about people. I find that if I connect with really great people, the people that they're connected to are also really great people, usually really good at what they do. Right. And so that's, people say, well, what kind of people do you want to be connected to? And I say, really good people who are really good at what they do. It's very simple, and that's the thing. It's really, there are those really good people who are genuine. And then many of those people also have really, rock solid skills that can help a company build a business. And as I said, at some point, they're probably going to go off and start their own business because they have those kind of skills.
Well, and because as they learn those roles, or as they fill those roles, they learn more about themselves and realize they don't want to be tied down to something like that. They want to take their skill sets and fly.
Absolutely. And what I found, this is the other thing that's been, again, where the pandemic has been instructive for me, is I developed at least 600 new relationships with people. And I've got a gigantic network on LinkedIn. I've got nearly 30,000 people. But I developed 600 new relationships since the pandemic. Most of those people are small business owners. And what I found as I started getting to know them, they were all, or almost all of them, the ones who are good at what they do, they were indispensable key talent when they were an employee of a company and they left. And so I know what the model is, the template for the kind of person. I just look at, for me, what's helping me grow my business right now is, before I was trying to find a lot of different people to hire, but I really don't need that because I don't need somebody to help me 40 hours a week except in 2 or 3 areas. So I have found some great professionals who, I use Susie for 10 hours here one week and maybe 2 hours the next week. And I use Christine for 5 hours one week and maybe 15 hours in another week. And then I don't need to utilize those skill sets again for, another month. The point is all of those people have killer skills at what they do. And that's the kind of people that I try to help companies find, the people with killer skills that, for 3 or 4 years, if you do things right, you get to leverage those skills and use it to grow your company. That's it. It's relatively simple. It's not easy to do, but it's relatively simple idea instead of trying to, as I say, recruiting in that old just-in-time method. You only find the people who are available. Most of the people who are really good, they technically aren't available, but the really good ones will always listen
and see, right,
they might not
opportunity.
jump, but again, they're smart. They know that if first of all, if they're talking to you, okay, they're making another connection in their network as well, right? And it's the right kind of person. And so it's all of that type of thing, and it becomes a very interactive approach, but it really does, for this to work for companies, they have to have a plan. And they have to work that plan. And sometimes it looks like that plan that nothing's happening because, well, what is Mark doing? He's just connecting with a bunch of people. That is the point.
It's those connections is what's
the point, right? And right. I mean, for me these days, I've been doing it all my life. And as a recruiter and as a person who does job search coaching and branding for candidates and everything, I don't have to look for candidates, or I don't have to look for clients. The clients all come from my network. They get referred to me. People I've known for years. Same thing with candidates. Most times I'll tell companies if they're starting to look, I say, look, just so you know, I probably already have that person in my database. I probably met with them, right? I need to know really about that position. I really need to know how you need a person to think. Now, I'm not going to let you tell that person how to think. But it's how do you think you need a person to think to be able to come in and not only thrive in that role, but again, to help the company build and help the company grow. And, and so, and I am the one then that kind of puts the pieces together, but I also come in and I'll help companies develop their own capability. As a consultant, yes, I will come in and recruit for companies, but many times companies say, can you help us do it on our own?
They need to see the big picture and figure out how to connect all of
They need that because they're so invested in that other way of recruiting that they've done for years.
Right.
And and the thing is, there's all kinds of technology, even LinkedIn, but ZipRecruiter and things like that. Those are not the technologies that are going to find the really, really, really good people.
No, it's people like you that really get to the heart of the whole situation and can make those connections and build the relationships. And those are the real types that we want to get.
Exactly.
I'd love to go on and on. We have a lot more to go. This is so cool. It was such a interesting conversation, but for those that have not picked up a copy of this book, this interview with Mark will give you a taste for really, really truly the wisdom that's in the page within the pages of this book, and then it also gives you a way to connect with Mark as you read this chapter and say, "Well, I need this. I really need this." So, so to pick up a copy if you haven't already, make sure you read through this entire book. It's filled with a wealth really golden nuggets that you can take away, you can apply to life and to business. And so thank you, Mark, for an awesome interview. And it's wonderful
Thank
to
you,
meet
Becky.
you.
Thank you.
Enjoyed this very
All
much.
right. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.